Hi, we are the Werkmans.
Sarah.
And I'm Russell. That's a good start. And so we met at Williams. We're class of 88.
1988.
And do you want the particular story?
Yeah,
Okay.
I want everything.
All right. The question was how I got from Williams to Spokane, Washington. And so one of the things that I was telling Chris and JJ and Tony is that what I really learned at Williams is how to learn. And that basically that has been my road all the way through. And so it took me to, I got a job. I went rafting with some friends from Susie Hopkins, and as a graduation present, we went rafting on the West Coast, and we started off in San Francisco, not rafting, but that was where we landed, and then went up to Oregon. And I fell in love with San Francisco, and I had just taken a class in religion and Zen. I was really interested in Zen, and the Zen Center was there, so I got a job bartending and working at the marina at the St. Francis Yacht Club. And then there was the earthquake, and that sort of shook up my plans. And how about that?
That's not a bad joke.
and then went to Japan to be with Sarah, and then I decided, oh my goodness, the only thing I'm any good at is acting, and so, or at least in college, that's what I majored in. So I went to acting school, and then that took me for 2 years in New York at Circle in the Square. And then I went to Portland, Oregon, and followed Sarah. She was teaching there, and tried to get a job there, and then eventually went to Los Angeles. And while I was in Los Angeles, worked a little bit, and as an actor, and also as a caterer, and was unemployed a lot as well, and realized that I needed another job when we got married, and I worked for a production company, and at the production company I learned how to manage a network, a computer network, and from that job I got a job at .com through a Williams friend that he'd started it, and we burned through a bunch of money, and then that I was laid off. But from there we decided we really want to be in schools and be in some sort of intentional community, and I'd gone to boarding school and really liked boarding schools. So with my computer background, I got a job as a director of technology and English teacher at a boarding school right near Williamstown, actually called Darrow School in New Lebanon. And from there, I then leveraged that into a position as a drama teacher and sort of director of the drama program at Trinity Pauling School, and in the process got a master's in educational leadership at Columbia, and that led me to my current job at St. George's School as the head of upper school. So the whole process has been just, sort of adding one more layer on top of whatever I've done.
But I think the crazy thing is that you, in the span of 10 years, 10 years ago, we were in Los Angeles. He was an actor. I was a youth minister, and we had just had our second child. And now, 10 years later, he's basically a high school principal with a master's degree, and I just got a master's degree in school counseling, and I've just changed my career. So I think the interesting thing is how much we've changed. I mean, we graduated 23 years ago. I mean, my story is a little different, but I went to New York City. I thought I was always I majored in Asian studies. I was going to teach Japanese forever and ever and ever, and I went to New York City, and then I went back to Japan for another year. I spent my junior year at Williams. I spent my junior year in Japan, and then I went back 2 years later and spent another year in Japan, and then I came back and taught Japanese at my old high school in Columbus, Ohio. And then I met Russell. I went and moved in with Russell in New York City and went to NYU grad school to get a master's in education. And then I got a job teaching Japanese out in Portland, Oregon, which is why he came out there. So up until that point, I was on this straight path. And then at the end of that year, we both decided we were really unhappy. He went to LA to be an actor, and I went to Guatemala to study Spanish. And I spent a whole year traveling around Central America and learning Spanish while he was acting. And then at the end of that year, we got engaged, and he got an acting job on a show that was filming in Santa Fe, New Mexico, and I don't know, we adopted 2 dogs, and I worked at a bookstore for a year. And then when we moved back to LA, I got a job as a youth minister that turned into a job I had for 6 years, and that's when we had both of our boys. And then we went back to education. But in the span of the 8 years that we were in boarding schools, I taught English as a second language, multicultural studies. I was the diversity coordinator, and then at the second school, I taught Spanish. So I kind of did a little bit of everything. I mean, we certainly haven't had straight paths. And then when Russell got the job out here, I decided to go back to grad school and start a whole nother career as a school counselor. So now I'm looking at job. I'm 45 and looking for work. But I'm really excited. I feel like everything I've done has kind of the same as Russell. Like William sort of started me, but everything I've done has now makes sense. Like when I think about what I want to do now as a school counselor and doing things, work with multicultural awareness, that it all works together. But at the time it didn't really, I mean, boy, our paths have not been straight, and we broke up a million times and dated for 7 years before we got married, and you know, nothing.
Had to get that in.
Nothing. I did, because if somebody's looking at this, come on, everybody thinks, oh, you meet your partner at Williams and everything's perfect. It's not always perfect, but it does work out.
And so if you're listening, if you're still listening, you haven't run out of bandwidth.
Yeah.
It'll all work out okay.
And come visit in Spokane.